Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated, or if you're catching us on Facebook, that's Tar Heel Illustrated, or on Twitter at Heel Illustrated. And if you're not following us, follow us on Twitter because we pop a lot of stuff out. That's one of the easiest ways to get to know what we're doing, aside from being a subscriber on our site, which is just $8.33 a month. And for that, you can be a Carolina insider too. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Miss Deana King. And the subject at hand today is the fact that Memorial Day has passed. That means June is right around the corner. And that means arguably, probably not arguably, probably exactly the biggest football recruiting month of the year. I hope Deana and Lee Wardlaw and Brandon P. are rested up because it's going to be a big-time sprint coming up here in June, Deana. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss many of the official visits Carolina has lined up for the month of June. Before we get into it, Deana, just very quickly, how excited are you that this time of year is here with the possibility that Carolina could get some very interesting commits over the next 4 to 6 weeks?
Well, currently they have 13 kids, and people have asked me, my opinion on the numbers. Of course, nobody knows that number except in the Keenan Football Center. So I've gave my guess that they could still take about 7 to 10 more kids. They're going to leave some spots for portal transfers, but you look at their list right now, there's some positions like wide receiver that they have no commits, and it's going to be a big month for the wide receiver group and for this class, because they've got several big time targets that have scheduled official visits. So it's an exciting time because a lot of these kids, like you said, are going to be visiting in Chapel Hill and going to other places to take visits. And always, June is the camp season. Coach Brown has a couple of camps, and then they have a 7-on-7 camp. They have a OLDL camp, a specialist camp, and then they have that. I think they call it is it Showtime now? Later possibly at the end of June, where they bring in a lot of the kids that they personally invite to get some good evaluation, especially 25 and 26, class of 25 and class of 26. So it's a big time, exciting time.
We're going to go over each of the weekends and just pick out a few of the kids that Deana has her eyes on the most. But before we do that, going back to the wide receiver situation, and we're going to talk about some wide receivers here. How important is it that they got Michael Merdinger in the fold? And Merdinger is someone who is starting to create a buzz. We talked about him when he committed. We told everybody just pump the brakes, let this play out. And now some other people, I know John Garcia and Rivals got a chance to see him last week, and it's like, wow, this kid's really, really good. So the staff trusted their evaluation. Chip Lindsey saw a bunch of kids throw in the spring, and he was the best. He was the best quarterback at an Elite 11 prospect in Orlando. So kids know about him now, and they're going to cross paths. They're going to see him that weekend. They're going to see him throw. They're going to throw with him. A lot of them are. How big is it that they got Merdinger in? He has totally involved himself into the recruiting process now, helping to lure other kids. How big is that?
Well, like when Carolina got Drake May, Drake was kind of like the ringleader. Tad Hudson, kind of the ringleader for his group. The quarterback is the figurehead of the class, and you want to have a guy that's outspoken and researching Michael. He has that type of personality. Kids are drawn to him and want to play with him. And, that part of the reason that he hadn't got a lot of exposure was, he was the backup last year to the quarterback. He's going to Central Florida, and Coach Lindsay saw him there. But now it's his time to shine, and he's gone to several camps and has done outstanding. People currently see the rankings like, oh, he's a 2-star. Well, I guarantee you it's going to go up because he's been very impressive. They had their spring jamboree last weekend. John Garcia was there and saw him and talked to him in person. Really liked what he saw. And, the quarterback wide receiver connection is huge. And they got him coming in that last weekend with a lot of their wide receiver targets in that group. So that weekend's going to be really huge for a lot of bonding there.
All right, well, let's hit on the weekends. There are 4 big recruiting weekends in the month of June, beginning with the first one, starting June 2nd, which is Friday. There's some committed kids that are coming in as well. Andrew Rosinski, an offensive lineman, Jaden Patterson, a DB, Aiden Banfield, offensive lineman. They're committed. They're coming this weekend as well. But Jonathan Paylor is also coming. Jonathan Paylor is someone that you identified a few years ago. You have been close to his recruitment for a while. And also Tim Lawson is someone else coming this weekend. So tell everybody about Jonathan Paylor if they don't know much about him, and also Tim Lawson as well, and just kind of go from there.
Shoot, I've been talking about Jonathan Paylor since his freshman year.
You say shoot? I've been talking. Wow, I've heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
I love a Deana-ism in every pod, my friend. You get a Deana-ism in every pod, that makes it a good pod.
He's been really good since his freshman year there at Cummins. I mean, North Carolina, they have done everything. They have shown him where they would use him. Josh Downs is the perfect example where they could put Jonathan Paylor at, and he's seen it, and he's been to several games, several visits, and he is just less than 30 minutes away from Chapel Hill. But he's got other schools that he's considering. I think South Carolina is one up there, big, NC State as well. But Paylor, he's a big track guy. He's fast, one of the fastest kids in the state. And you combine that with his football stuff. I mean, he's up there. He's one of the top players in the state. And
quick note, if I dive in, quick note real fast, just before you go on to Tim Lawson. This is my one interruption. It helps Caroline's case that the 2 starting slots in the MAC are both in the NFL, both are playing in the NFL. So that's they've got some selling points, and that's one of them.
Yeah, because Galloway has been to Cummins several times, so the relationship's pretty huge there. So
how about Tim Lawson?
Lawson, he is from Florida, and you'll like this. He's a very good baseball player, Andrew. Pitcher. He threw a no-hitter this spring, so he's a big tight end. Getting Freddie Kitchens on staff has helped the tight end room. Anytime you can have a coach that is coached at the top level and has his resume will resonate with kids. And so he is scheduled to come June 2nd. So pretty aggressive group that's coming there. As you mentioned, 3 commits, 2 offensive linemen, and Jaden Patterson, a DB. So it's a nice group, not too big. They'll get a lot of personal time with the staff.
We're not naming all the kids that are visiting, just we're highlighting some of them. Let's go on. What were we going to say?
Oh, well, Jameer Grimsley is another kid that is a DB that North Carolina's high on. That's
June 9th, following weekend. Daniel Anderson is a Carolina Committee's Jack. Tavani Mizell, Curtis Simpson, whom we've written about here recently, Corey Duff. We had a piece on him about a week and a half ago as well. What are your thoughts about Mizell, Simpson, and Duff in particular?
Tavani Mizell, a 4-star running back, huge. North Carolina's already got a commitment from Davion Galls, a 4-star out of Florida. Think they're wanting to get to, and we'll talk about the other candidate in the next weekend. But Mizell, he's a really good player, 4-star, and he's got a lot of schools that are interested in him. Curtis Simpson, Brandon P. talked to and saw Curtis in a camp down around Charlotte. He's out of Kings Mountain. Right now he's only got one official scheduled, and it's UNC. I think it looks really, really positive for Carolina because they're recruiting him as a jack, and they made a lot of headway with him. So I think it looks really good for Simpson. Corey Duff up in the New Jersey area. Really big time tight end, like I mentioned with Lawson. A lot of tight ends are interested in North Carolina because of Coach Kitchens. He had an impressive rivals camp up in New Jersey and earned the MVP out of the wide receiver / tight end group. So
they also play 3 tight ends. Tight ends.
So I mean, they want a few tight ends, and considering what they have right now, and they don't have, that they're going to need to replenish their tight end room. So that's and you mentioned Daniel Anderson, the commit, is going to play jack and everything. So a nice group there as well.
June 15th, kind of a small group here. I guess it's the calm before the storm for the following weekend. Mm-hmm. But Peter Pazanski, defensive end, Carolina commit, he's coming in that weekend. Hank Weber, someone we've been documenting for quite some time. And Anthony Carey, whom I know you want to speak about as well. Let's stick with Weber and Carey on this one.
Well, Weber and Carey, they both came down. Weber has been to Carolina numerous times, and like you said, I've spoke to Hank several times. He's a Nashville kid, and we explained how North Carolina is really trending out west towards the Nashville area, and he's been on campus several times. Everything about North Carolina. Really high academic kid. Vanderbilt's another school that's really high on his list. Wisconsin and North Carolina are all got the official visits. Anthony Carey, mentioned before, running back, another 4-star. He's out of Florida as well, out of Tampa, and that's a region that North Carolina has really recruited heavily in this cycle in the Tampa area. And Carey and Mizell, I think North Carolina would be really tickled if they could land either one of those. I mean, because they done got Galls, and they're wanting another running back, just because you never know with as in any position group, things after when they start back this season, you don't know. There may be some some guys moving on. So
they're going to lose. They're going to lose some guys for sure. They're going they're going to play their eligibility out. Might be transfers, whatever the case may be. So do you have a vibe on one of these 2 running backs? Possibly one being one being closer to possibly committing to Carolina, or do you think it's a long shot for both, or however you look at it?
Carey came the weekend of the Duke basketball game in March, and North Carolina had a large group there. That many of these kids, Pizanski was there, Taylor, they had a big group there. Ashton Woods, Cruz Law, several of these kids I'll be talking about later. But Kerry, I remember when I reached out to him, I was in the airport, and he told me originally Carolina wasn't on Kerry's top list. He had done a top list, but something intrigued him about North Carolina. And then when he got up there, he really loved the playing style, the way North Carolina uses their backs, and so I think Kerry might be a little bit closer to out of
UNC.
out of
Yeah.
because
Are-
he made a point to come up there, and then he liked what he saw, and now he's come. He's come there like 3 times when he gets there in June the 15th. So
June 22nd. It's a big list, so let's go kind of quick through some of these kids. 4 commits will be in. Jenny Norwood, an offensive lineman. Khalil Conley, an athlete. You're projecting DB for him. Michael Merdinger, quarterback. We've already talked a little bit about him. And Ryan Ward at tight end. Now, uncommitted, Alex Taylor. I think Alex Taylor is one of the prizes of the month of June if they can land him. Malcolm Ziegler, Keenan Jackson. You just mentioned Cruz Law, Christian Peterson, Ashton Woods. You just mentioned Javarius Green. We just ran a piece on him a couple of weeks ago as well. That's an impressive group. And I think that if they have enough success with that group and in this month, but that weekend would certainly top it off, they could shift the narrative a little bit about this class if they have a very successful June, but in particular that weekend.
yeah, Alex Taylor from Greensboro, Grinsley, 4-star. Seems like I've been talking about him a lot too. He is a really good player. Clemson is a team to look out for with him. It's one of his official visits. But like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, having Michael Merdinger there, and there's like 20, possibly like 20 kids that are going to be in that weekend. So Alex Taylor's a wide receiver. Braylon Staley, who Lee did a piece on, is going to be there.
Yeah.
Keenan Jackson, who left Cuthbertson High School and is playing at Weddington now. In-state kid. He's been at UNC a lot too. I think Carolina's in really good shape with him. And Javarius Green from Crest High School. Brandon did a piece on him. Carolina's really high on his list as well. So I mentioned the wide receivers. They got a good group there to kind of see how Michael Merdinger is and him, kind of build relationships with them. And then because that wide receiver group, like I said earlier, no commits yet. So I can see them taking 3 or 4 wide receivers, and they're in good shape with all of them that are coming on official visits. And then a couple other guys to Cruz Law and Ashton Woods. Both of those are Georgia kids. Ashton Woods is a Georgia kid. Cruz Law's a Tennessee kid around Nashville. They've been to games, visits a lot, and they're really really solid players. And as far as DBs, Malcolm Ziegler from Fuquay-Varina, he's a standout, in the in-state. And Christian Peterson is another kid that they're really high on at in the secondary. So it's just a lot going on in June. And like you said earlier, me, Brandon, and Lee are going to be really busy trying to catch up with these kids on after their visits and everything. So it's a big month. I know that Mac's always learning, and he's always adjusting. Like last year, we were really swamped last year when the camps and the official visits on the same day. they've kind of adjusted that schedule where they wouldn't have like having a camp going on and then having all these visitors, so they can spend quality time with the visitors as well.
How many times did you and I have to do podcasts from me in my hotel, sitting in my hotel room in Virginia? I'm writing a book about the high school I went to, which doesn't exist anymore. And I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, just south of technically Alexandria. And I was up there a couple times last year, and I swear, 4 times a day, you would send me a text about, we need to be on top of this. We did a couple of pods in a hotel room, and I'm thinking, man, people are going to think that I'm doing something cheesy here, like being in a hotel and having a weird backdrop and stuff. So let's hope that doesn't happen again this month in June, because I'm heading up there again. But I have a feeling that there's going to be quite a bit of activity.
If a lot of people knew of all the podcasts that didn't get published.
A lot.
You know?
This one will get published. We're going to run it. We're recording it on Tuesday. It's just after Tuesday afternoon. We're going to hopefully run this tonight or Wednesday morning. So we're going to get this thing rocking so you guys can get a heads up. June 22nd is going to be big. Just very quickly before we go, Deana, how big is this month? How big is this month of the program? And do they need they need an Alex Taylor and a Paler and some of those kids to commit, to kind of bolster the class's ranking and the narrative about the class?
Well,
because they need really good players.
Well, let me explain something. There's one kid that we didn't discuss, and it's still kind of up in the air. He's still planning, and that's Jordan Shipp, wide receiver out of Providence Day. He's got, right now, I think he's got one official scheduled, and that's for NC State. I feel pretty confident that he will eventually schedule one for North Carolina. I know some other big schools, Michigan, is among his top schools. Some of these kids are just they're wrapping up their junior year in high school, and so they're just they're still teenagers, and So, but Jordan Shipp is another kid that I feel North Carolina has a great chance of landing. He plays in a great for a great team in Providence Day with major D1 Power 5 kids that 4 and 5 stars. So, I mean, he's another kid that's, we didn't mention because this is official visit, but I feel sure that he will be at UNC sometime this month, but still trying to figure out and work things out. So, yeah, this is –
Go
ahead.
Well, I was going to close it out, so go ahead.
Oh, so, yeah, this is a huge month for North Carolina, and I think they've got to land a few of the bigger kids, bigger named, bigger stars, because the fans always like the stars, and getting a couple 4 stars, in June could help out later on down the road.
You and Lee will be on top of it. Brandon will be pitching in as well. And of course, I will be on red alert so much of the month. I hope it doesn't happen when I'm at a concert or an Orioles game, that kind of thing. So Jacob's going to have to be on a little bit of alert too.
Better than that. Something always happens.
I know. Well, anyway,
luckily nothing happened that weekend that Jacob got married, and you were at Jacob's wedding, and David's daughter got married, and nothing. And I had a big fundraiser event for my high school, and luckily nothing happened that day. So.
Luckily. Well, we'll be on top of it. You guys will be all over it. Make sure you go to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Just $8.33 a month. So much of the intel that we gather over the next month won't be on a podcast, won't be on a free article. It'll be right there on the boards or in a premium content item. So make sure you sign up so you could be a Carolina Tar Heels insider too. She's Deana. I'm AJ. Thanks for stopping by.